My name is Daryl Prince, and to correct an issue for which I have been underdiligent in pursuing to the fullest of my ability, communicating with you the seriousness of issues that are going on and correcting you or correcting the overall mindset of what we talk about on a day-to-day issue basis, like, because most of it is just nonsense and garbage, and a lot of the stuff we spend time talking about is, political party projections that didn't ever make sense in the first place, and certainly don't now. And facts matter, and law matters, although to some it seems it's a bit optional. Not to me. And nor are the risks to humanity, my country. I'm not afraid of, the need for military interaction, but most of the time, especially with the advantages the United States has, i.e., money, and despite disgusting overuse of its resources for tax cuts, increased government revenues, they don't. They hurt government revenues, obviously, and provide necessary normalization. I don't like paying taxes either, but it has to be done, and that's the way high income economies and high benefit economies, and the US does have high benefits, including political freedom, and that's super important, and that's what differentiates us from a lot of other countries, despite our many other flaws. That thing, and that the power comes from the people, and that we're supposed to, you know, adhere to that and treat the people as if, well, and although it has not always come down racially equally as a matter of fact, law, and principle, it has definitely not adhered to that as well to non-white folks. In fact, it's been pretty brutal to some non-white folks. But by the same token, they have called a few of the shots right to get some things right in some places, and been part of the mess in a few other places. But the overall idea that you move things around in a geographic section and that people vote for people to find leadership is absolutely and completely a thing for which, if you're going to try to have some sort of egalitarian system, some sort of merit-based system, you have to measure it up by geographies. Although that's not terribly different than they did when they had lords and ladies. But geography and space, and having people, jointly govern that space, there's only a few ways that you can skin a cat, and you have to give people authority, and you have to develop people with authority who know what they want, really care about things, and work to make sure that the world around them is a better place. And that's much more important than party and getting attached to those labels. I mean, George Washington said it when he went out, and allows for all kinds of things for which, the basic contract of America you don't want. And it's supposed to be so that each section of the country starts to, assert its own particular principles and acts in a way that helps its people of its state, and not akin to political parties or whatever they want, but according to what their own people want. And that's sort of what the goal and the dream and the idea of America is. But we have to be very clear about what risks are and what things we need to be talking about, because there are very real things. It's not all just laws, and we hope everything keeps going the same way. There's physical constraints to the universe we live in, and we have to adhere to those. And money and the rest of it is supposed to represent those inputs and outputs of material resources in such a way that makes sense, and we can move forward as people in a society, understanding those things and figuring out how those things work at city, state, national, and global levels. Because we're all people, it's the same basic inputs. And then there's, whether there's a river or a stream nearby, but what you get from those things are fairly consistent, and you can kind of map those onto the next place where people would be, and you can find what works one place and replicate it other places. But we have to find a balance with ourselves, and with nature, and with the things we extract from nature. Right now, we pull 100 billion tons each year out of the environment, and we turn 2/3 of it, 67 billion tons, into trash or waste gases, just pushed up into the atmosphere, which becomes insulation, which warms the earth. So we have to do something about that. We can't do that, and it's not. The effects on the economy. Yeah, I mean, it's possible, but there's things you have to do, and economy has to follow sense. There's not going to be much of an economy, and I mean, the worst case scenarios for what we're up against in terms of global warming and the heating of the earth, because only two facts you need to understand about the scale and scope of global warming. To put it, is 40 pounds per person per day just from oil, for every man, woman, and child in the United States. And you're like, nah, that sounds like too much. Every single day, 40 pounds per person per day. And then that in 1856, maybe 1860, something like that, they knew that carbon dioxide, this gas that we're putting 40 pounds per person per day into, some 21 billion pounds per day for the 21 million barrels of oil. You can check that yourself. EIA, Energy Information Administration. It comes straight from the oil companies themselves, as does the confirmation that global warming is happening, and that there is that the science works, and that it was warming as predicted. They did that in the 80s. It was ExxonMobil's data, and a lot of the basic understandings of the science come from some of their observations of what actually happened and was actually predicted in the 1800s. They started thinking that the atmosphere was going to warm as the industrial processes ramped up. So we knew in the 1800s that this was coming. So now it's 2026. The government knew. We're still burning more oil than ever. And right now, if we warm up and the ice caps start melting, the ice caps, obviously ice is important in keeping the temperature normalized. The warming that we've seen is going to increase at a much, much higher rate. So there's things that we can do. There's a lot of things we can do. We have to coordinate on it, and we have to go into something closer to emergency mode all the way across the board, because we're already at 1.5 degrees C, which is 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit warmer on average. Like, it's 3 degrees warmer every single day of the year on average. And then, there's up and downs because it's an average over the entire Earth, and there's a lot of Earth. But that's also why it's kind of crazy. And then there's several thousand Hiroshima bombs of energy being added to the entire world, more energy than in when it was in the 1980s. So we gotta make some changes. We have to do them quick, but also, if we do it right, it's sort of the greatest economic explosion in American or human history, and it's return to what we used to do, which was, build. We built cities all across America. There were no cities in 1830s across America, and now there's 50 states. and we can make those states better. And but we have to start looking. We had the whole federal government looking to make sure that they got these things going. So we got to do this all kinds of other places. But we also have to do it with making sure that we don't have people burning tons of fuel to get to the grocery store or whatever. And if we can, so move people closer together if they can, because people like to hang out together and see each other, and it creates a little bit of excitement. It's hard to deny. You got to have a little bit of that. Although I personally love grass and trees and to see nature, and we got to do our best to preserve it so that it's there for us, and to encourage it, so it's there for us, like real nature, and not like sort of a fake gardeny. Oh yeah, there's some grass, there's some trees, like but we have to act to preserve that, because we're not, and we're just destroying it wantonly, and sometimes without great cause, or it's the best way to do it. We're just kind of doing it on autopilot because it's kind of how we've always done things, or how we've done things recently, and we don't think about them, but we have to think about them, and that's the way it works now, because we're a big society, and we got to start thinking about things at scale.